Hey everybody, hope that you're having a nice week. In this video, I'm going to be going over Module 2. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the content of the module, as well as the assignments and expectations for the next 2 weeks. So Module 2 is all about this concept called socialization. And socialization is a really big deal in sociology. So if you think back to Chapter 1, the Sociological Perspective, the sociological perspective is all about placing human behavior in its social context. So instead of necessarily judging others by the way that we were raised or our life experiences, we are considering the social factors around that person for helping us to understand why they are who they are and why they behave the way that they do. And so socialization has a lot of implications within sociology, from things like human development to gender roles, which you'll explore in this chapter, even including things like inequality, as well as our 3 major theoretical frameworks. So socialization is a really big concept that's important to understand before moving forward in the course, because it's a really pivotal part of being able to think like a sociologist. So this module will cover chapters 3, 4, and 11, and they all touch on different aspects of socialization. So chapter 3 is the socialization chapter. The title of the chapter is Socialization, and it gives you the baseline for this process. And socialization is a process. As you'll read, it continues over the entire lifespan. So it starts with discussing the nature versus nurture debate, which you've probably heard about. The nature side of it says that our biology and our brain, we kind of born the way that we are, and that's why we behave the way that we do. So you can imagine sociology is going to take the opposite side. So sociologists are going to say it has a lot more to do with your social environment, which is the nurture side of this debate. And as you'll read in the book, there's actually a balance between the two that sociologists take. So sociologists are going to lean toward the nurture side because that's what we're interested in, but we don't discount the nature part of it. We acknowledge that biology and things like mental illness and things that are housed within the brain, these things absolutely affect human behavior. But we focus on the nurture side because we're sociologists and we talk about society. So you'll read about that in chapter 3. We also talk about theoretical frameworks for socialization, as well as this concept called the agents of socialization in this chapter. Both of these are important points for your written assignment in this module, and you will read about those. You may have heard terms like, or theorists like Piaget, Mead, Freud. Those are covered as theoretical frameworks in this chapter. And then I will share a video specifically on the agents of socialization as well. So make sure you're paying attention to those big parts of chapter 3. Chapter 4 talks about this concept of social structure. So social structure is literally the way that our society is organized. And you can think of it as kind of enveloping us. The social structure envelops us in the way that our society has been organized. So this includes a lot of different pieces. So it includes kind of some smaller micro pieces like statuses and roles, which you'll see are positions that you occupy in society, as well as the things that you do as part of that position. So for example, your status as a student, so the status is student, the role are the things that you do as part of being a student. So reading and studying and writing and keeping up with your coursework. And this becomes, it seems very simple, but it becomes a lot more meaningful when you look at things like role strain and role conflict and the way that these are influenced by broader social processes. And you'll read about that in chapter 4. This also includes groups. So the groups that we are part of have pretty big impact on our lives as well. This also includes culture and social class. So social structure includes culture and social class right here. You learned about culture last week. And then social class is probably the way that you've thought about it your whole life. It's a measure of how much wealth and power and the occupational prestige that you have. So if you can imagine, social class is highly influential in the way that we are socialized. So if you think about the socialization that would occur from a very high class family that attends, like cotillions and they're part of country clubs, very exclusive schools and other groups, versus the socialization that would occur for a family living in poverty. So you can think about the values and the beliefs and the behaviors being different for those two groups. We also have these things called social institutions in our social structure, and that refers to the way that we have organized our society's basic needs. So things like the family. The family is there to help us make babies and raise babies. We have our education institution, which is to kind of prepare future members of society for their role in society. And we have more specialized things like law or health and medicine, even like the media. These all perform different functions for society that help us maintain and keep us going as a society. Again, you'll read about that in chapter 4. Social structure is critical to socialization because it determines a lot of what we experience. So our social structure right now in 2020 is vastly different from the social structure back in the 1800s. So you can imagine how different your life would be comparing those two time periods. You can also do this across modern countries to compare how different your life would be if you were raised in a different area of the world. So social structure gives us a lot of insight into socialization too. And then finally, chapter 11 is going to discuss gender and gender socialization. So this will discuss the difference between sex and gender. So sex is going to refer to your biological parts, whereas gender is going to refer to the roles and expectations that we assign because of those biological parts. So what you are expected to do as a male versus a female, we call those gender roles. And so you'll see some theories there about how we become male or female socially regarding gender roles, as well as some explanations for gender discrimination and gender inequality in that chapter. So again, Module 2 is all about socialization, different sociological explanations for how we become who we become. So going into the module here, remember you have your objectives and they all touch on each chapter. So the first objective is going to refer to how people become human beings in regards to socialization. The second one is going to talk about social structure, which I just reviewed a little bit. And the third one is about gender socialization. And then you can read here about how it connects to Module 1. So there's your objectives. Remember, you don't need to do anything or write anything about these objectives. They're just there to help you keep track of what you've learned and how well you understand the content. Then we have our module assignment summary. So you get your due dates here. So there are 2 assignments for this module. The first is a think piece, which is an essay. Not a discussion board post, but a traditional essay, so you don't have any peer replies here. You're going to actually upload a paper. And then you also have the test, which is the same format as last time. So make sure that you're paying attention to when the module opened, because the think piece will be due 1 week afterwards. So if you're watching this in the 16-week course, your due dates are right here. But if you're in the 14-week course, your dates will be a little different, so make sure you pay attention to that. And your module test is due on the last day of the module. So think piece is due a week after the module opens. Test is due the last day of the module. So that's the assignment summary. So let's get into what you're actually supposed to write for your written assignment. So this assignment is going to ask you to take pieces of all 3 chapters and apply them to these 2 scenarios. It's going to ask you to analyze the socialization of these 2 children. So let's look at Maria. Maria lives in New York City in a large apartment in Manhattan. So what does that already tell you? It tells you Maria is used to city life, If she's living in a large apartment in Manhattan, that means they probably have some money or come from money, so she's probably pretty wealthy. Reading on, her father is a successful lawyer and her mother is a doctor. So we see here her parents are educated. They work in very high prestige jobs. Mom has taken some time to stay at home with her kids, so she sees her mother often. Maria's 10, but she's got a 6-year-old sister and a 3-year-old brother, and she attends private school and takes piano and dance. So she has some after-school activities after attending private school. So that's Maria's case. We also have Matt. So Matt's going to live in rural West Virginia in a tiny mountain community. So you can compare this. So think about agents of socialization. One of them is the neighborhood. So think about the neighborhood Maria might live in versus the neighborhood Matt lives in. There's already a huge difference there that will contribute to the way that these two children develop. His mother is a single parent of 6 kids. So again, compare this to Maria. She's got both of her parents there who both work high prestige careers. But his mother it doesn't tell you what she does right now, but it does later. But we know that she's a single parent. She's got 6 kids versus this family's 3. Matt is 10 and 3rd from the oldest, so they're the same age, but he has a lot more siblings. His mother works 2 jobs and is rarely home. So again, compare this to Maria's mother, who has taken time off from work to stay at home with her kids. So Matt's mother working 2 jobs probably hints that it's difficult to make ends meet here. So probably not as well off as Maria. Matt and his brothers are often left to care for the younger siblings, and his older brothers are gone a lot. So think about the responsibility Matt would have compared to Maria. Maria's doing these after school activities and Matt's kind of babysitting while his mother's working. Matt attends public school, but has trouble making it there because he sleeps late or has family obligations. So that comparison there again. So now what you're to do is to think about these 4 questions. So think about how socialization will impact both children's values, behaviors, self-concepts, and life chances. So in your book, it discusses different explanations for how we develop that talk specifically about self-concept. So maybe you want to think about the looking glass self. So this is the way that we perceive ourselves off the opinions of others. You can also think about taking the other, so that's Mead's theory. Think about the role models in each of their lives, and how might that affect what they see themselves as they grow up. I also think helps you to think about gender socialization. So one of the interesting parts here is that Matt is a caretaker, which is not something you often see for young, 10-year-old boys. So that might be interesting as well. The agents of socialization here. So we already know the neighborhoods are different, the schools are different, the families are different. You can talk about the way that they're influencing these children. And then lastly, social structure. So remember, one of the pieces of social structure is social class. So think about the impact of social class on these kids' lives, and then their statuses and roles that might be an outcome of that. So consider these 2 passages and these 2 scenarios in reference to all of the concepts of socialization that you read about in chapters 3, 4, and 11. Don't forget to cite your book. It's an important part of this assignment requirements. Make sure it's 2 full pages at least. Here's some formatting help. Don't forget your APA formatting, which includes in-text citations, and then your reference list. Please make sure you submit a Word document. I can't open Pages documents, and you'll submit that on Blackboard as an attachment. So that's the writing assignment. Don't forget you have these text summaries here of the book too if they help you. There's a sample here for you to view. It's not perfect, but it's a start. So you can look there. It gets full credit for what it does. Again, it's not perfect, but it can help you start thinking about the assignment. And then lastly, don't forget your test. The test is due as well. It's the same thing as last time. Open notes, open book. Just be sure to do it by the deadline. All right. So that's Module 2. Let me know if you have any questions. Happy reading and happy writing. Take care.